Hello everyone, it's Lisa from Epic Yarn Gems. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a new pattern hat that I have. It's called the X4U beanie, and this is another beanie that can be used for the Hat Not Hate. It is a pretty straightforward, easy pattern. It is one of the first patterns I actually did on my own without following someone else's pattern. But back when I actually did do this, I didn't know how to write a pattern down. So now that I do know how to write them down a little better, I thought I'd share it with all of you. The yarn that I used was the Lion Brand yarn Pound of Love, and I will be doing a review on this yarn coming up in the next couple days and weeks. But this was the yarn that I used. It was a nice blue color for the Hat Not Hate. It was the color navy, and it was a 4 worst weight yarn. So let's get started. We're going to start with a slip knot. Do that any way that works best for you. And then we are going to do a chain of 22. So we are just going to yarn over and go through that chain or that loop that's already on our hook to make the chain, and we are going to do that 22 times. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit so that we can get to the end of this row, and then once we are at the end, what we're going to do is start our first row of our ribbing. And this is how I do ribbing, and other people may do it different ways, but what I do is I go into that second chain from the hook, and we're going to be doing half double crochets. So we are going to go all the way down this row with half double crochets, and since you started from the second chain from where the hook ended, you are going to get a total of 20 stitches once you are done. Alright, so I am going to speed up the video a little bit here, and we're going to get this first row of half double crochets in. I just want to send a note out to all the creators that I really enjoy watching. I have been not able to watch your videos. I thought I would be able to do some more crochet videos of my own and keep up on my YouTube watching since I'm stuck at home, but unfortunately for some reason I seem to be busier at home than I ever was, so it is my goal to catch up on all of my video watching in this next weekend. Alright, so to start our next row, we are going to start with a chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. And then in that very first stitch, not in the chain 2, but in that very first stitch, you're going to do a half double crochet under both of those loops. For me, this makes a very nice straight edge, and that is why I do the two, or I go under both of the strands instead of just the one. And then for the rest of the row, except for that last stitch, you're going to go into your back loop only, and you're going to do a half double crochet all the way across. So this is what is going to create the ribbing, and like I said, I do it this way just because I like the clean edges that it makes when you start by going under both of those loops, and that is how you're going to end the row as well. When you get to that very last stitch, what you'll do is you will not do the back loop only, but you will do under both of the strands. So here we are at the end of that row, and we're going under both of those strands with our half double crochet, and you should have a total of 20 stitches all the way across. So we're going to do a chain 2 and turn our work again, and then we're going to go back and do the exact same thing that we just did with the previous row, starting with half double crochet, going under both of the loops, and then going all the way across, going in the back loop only with a half double crochet. And then we are going to finish off the very last stitch by going under both of the strands with a half double crochet, and you're going to do that until you get to the desired length that you want. This hat is made for like a medium-sized adult, so what I did is my hat without any stretch was 19 inches long, and then when I stretched it out, because you know the hats do stretch out once you wear them a bit, it is 22 inches. Also, I do make them shorter just because I want it to be able to be snug on an individual's head. So I do check how long it is when it's stretched, but I also do shorten it a bit to start off. And the next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to join these two short ends that you have to actually make it into a hat. So I start with the chain one, and then I line the two short ends up, and there's many different ways to do this join. And to be very honest, I struggle with it every time I do it, and I have to do it several times. But what I do, or what I did for this hat, is I did a single crochet between the two. So I go under the first side, and then I go under both loops on the second side. And you can see this is not the easiest thing that I have ever done. For whatever reason, I am not very good at this. So if you find another video on how to do this, you can do this with the mattress stitch. You can do it with a slip stitch. There's just really a lot of ways to do that. So what I do is I go in one side. This is where my chain was. I go underneath where the chain is. Then I go under the two strands from the other end and just do a single crochet. Like I said, there are a lot of different ways to do this. You can even do this with your tapestry needle and stitch it up like you would do if you were sewing. So whatever works best for you to do this join, please feel free to do that however you would like. And as we finish up, we're going to do a chain two, but we also want to make sure we are keeping an eye on where that seam is, because this portion or these ribbings, you're going to fold in half, so you're going to want that to not have the seam on the outside of the hat, so you may have to turn it inside out. So after your chain two, what you are going to do is you're going to go all the way around the ribbing. You are making the first row of your hat here, and you are going to put 57 half double crochets into this row. I know you're asking yourself, well, when I did the ribbing, I only did 45 rows. So how am I going to get 57 into the top of this? Well, what you're going to do is as you go around, you're going to try to eyeball and keep them as evenly spaced as possible to get 57. There are going to be areas that may be a little closer together than others, and some that may be spaced apart a little further. But that's okay as long as you are trying to keep them evenly spaced to make sure that you get 57. That really is all that matters. So what I typically do is when I get halfway around the brim, I want to be halfway to the number that I'm supposed to get to. So when I get to the end of doing this, I don't have to put like 7 stitches in a very little space. So like I said, do your best. Just try to eyeball it a bit, and I'm sure it'll turn out great. And this is what you are going to do for rows 1 through 3. So that first row, like I said, is going to go into the ribbing of the hat, but then after that you're going to have a nice base of 57 stitches. So for row 2, you are going to chain 2 and do 57 half double crochets in each of the stitches around, and then you're going to repeat that one more time for row 3. Here's a quick example of your slip stitch join by going into that first stitch, yarning over, pull up a loop, and you pull it through the loop that is on your hook. And this is what your hat's going to look like. You can see that your seam is facing out, and then when you roll up the brim, that seam is now on the inside. So it's not as noticeable when you do it this way. So we're going to start off with the next set of repeat patterns. So we are going to start off with our chain 2, and then we're going to do a double crochet into that same stitch that we did the chain 2, because the chain 2 does not count as a double crochet. Now what you're going to do next is you're going to skip the next stitch. So there's the next stitch, and then you're going to do a double crochet into the stitch after that. And to do a double crochet, you're just going to yarn over, go through the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops on your hook, yarn over again, and then you're going to go through the last 2. And then to make this the X, what you're going to do is you're going to go back to that stitch that you skipped and put a double crochet right in there, going in through the front of the stitch, coming out the back, and then once you do that, you are just going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and you're just going to finish your double crochet like you normally would. And that is how you make the X pattern. You can do it a different way, and I do have a video that shows that, but for this pattern I thought that this worked out nicely. So there you can see you have the X. And this is what we're going to continue all the way around for this row. We're going to skip our next stitch, then we're going to go into the stitch after that, do a double crochet, go back to the stitch that we skipped, and do a double crochet in there. So as you move on, you can see that is where the skip is, and then we go into the next stitch after that. And you are going to do this all the way around until you get to the very end, and then you are going to do a slip stitch join with the first stitch in this row. As I was watching back the playback of this video, I noticed how terrible my nails looked. With this stay-at-home order, I am not able to go out and get my nails done, so they are looking pretty bad. But I did really want to get a video out for you all, so I guess we'll just look past the nails for this week. So as we move on, we're going on to row 5, and row 5 is just a straight row of half double crochets. So you are going to do that slip stitch join from the previous row, chain 2, and then do your first half double crochet in that same stitch that you did your chain 2, and then you're just going to go all the way around and make sure that you get 57 stitches once you have completed, and that is your row 5. You're going to finish off this row with that slip stitch join. Now that you have finished up row 5, row 6 through row 15 are just repeating those 2 rows. You're going to do row 4, then row 5 over and over until you get to the desired length that you want. For me, what I did this was to row 15. And once you get to that row, the next part of this is just to bring the hat to closure at the top so that it does close off nicely. If you've seen my videos before, I am not really a fan of the bottom up hat. The way that I cinch things off just doesn't seem to work really well for me. I don't like how it looks. Maybe I'm a little too critical on myself, but as I do more and more, I am actually liking how it looks. So I may be doing more bottom-up patterns than I have done in the past. And as we finish up, this is what the hat is looking like. It measures with the folded up brim about 8.5 inches long. And now we are going to start decreasing our rows. So for row 16, you're going to start like you have every other row with a chain 2. And then you are going to do a half double crochet in that same stitch. Then we're going to move on and we're going to do our decrease. So here we go. We're going to yarn over, go through that first stitch, pull up a loop. So 3 loops on your hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up another loop, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on your hook and yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. And you are going to do that, repeat all the way around with doing a half double crochet and then 2 together half double crochet. And this will decrease your stitches to 38 stitches all the way around. And I know this may not be the way people, everybody does a decrease. This is just the way that I did the decrease. I thought the stitch looked tall enough and that it helped cinch off the hat so that it didn't look so goofy on the top. So this is how I have done the reduction. If you have another way to do the reductions, please feel free. But you do want to get down to about 38 stitches all the way around for this row. We are going to do one more row of decreases, so starting with your chain 2 and going into that same stitch where you did your chain 2, you are going to do that half double crochet 2 together. So you go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops on your hook, and yarn over and go through the last 2. And you're going to do that all the way around, and once you have completed these 2 together half double crochets, you should have a total of 19 stitches now. And when I finished this up, that made a nice size that I could cinch, and it didn't gap too much or bunch up too much. So after this row, I did do the cinching of the top. This is another thing that you can do at your preference. What I did is I slip stitched joined into the top of the row again, and then I just cut my yarn off, leaving a long enough tail, and then I turned the hat inside out, going through the center of the hole that was left at the top, and then I just took my tapestry needle, and in those stitches at the top I just wove back in and out of each of those stitches so that when I pulled my string tight it would close that hole up. So like I said, I know there are several different ways that you can do this. This is just the way that I have done it, and feel free to do whatever works best for you. So after we've gone all the way around, we are just going to pull that long tail, and what that will do is that will close up the hole. You're going to make it, you want to make it, look a little uniform as best as you can, and tighten it up as much as you can because you don't really want a hole in the top of your hat. So after you have done that, what I do is I just do a couple weaves back and forth to make sure that that hole is closed off, and then I tie off my yarn at the top. Sometimes when I do these types of hats, what I do is I put a palm on the top of it so that if I'm not liking how the top looks, it is covered up by that little extra accessory. So if you want, you can always put a palm on top of this hat, but you are just going to finish this off by tightening it up, tying off the top, and there you have it. That is what the top is looking like. And like I said, you don't want that hole too big. So pretty much, that looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to tie off my yarn. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also leave me some comments if you would like. Share out the video. I really appreciate that. I will include the other social medias that I use. And I do really appreciate you stopping by. So don't forget to subscribe to Epic Yarn Gems. Hit that little bell so that you get notified when I post new videos. I hope that you all are staying safe, and as always, peace, love, and happiness to you all.